Glad that you're here this morning. I know that over the course of weeks and months now, so much in life is changing, and we're trying to figure out and navigate life. Emotions are up and down, thoughts, and trying to figure out what life looks like. Even being here with less people here than normal in the midst of a pandemic and summertime, and I know a lot of people are watching online. But one of the things for me that this last week, I heard another pastor say, and he just kind of gave a metaphor for this whole thing, and it was like, yes, this is it. And he was just saying that, it's like we were swimming for a couple miles, and we got done swimming, and we got up out of the water, and we thought, all right, we're done. And then the next thing you know, somebody hands us a bike and says, oh no, now you need to ride the bike for like this many miles, and there's a run after that, and we're all just like going, what is happening? Just with COVID and now with all the division and so much going on. Another guy who he started what's called the Emotionally Healthy Discipleship course that we offer here a couple times during the month. He said this, and I shared this with our staff the other day. He said, we're in the midst of three crises. One is a global pandemic that happens like once a century. And we're also in a global recession, which really hasn't happened that much, because of technology, though now it's more real. And then the third thing that's happening is now the church is having to confront 400 years of racial injustice that is just ignored. And so here we are in the midst of all of this. And he said, as pastors, we get into trouble, not because we forget we're pastors, but because we forget that we're humans with weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and limits. And so we all have weaknesses and vulnerabilities and limits. We all do. I do, you do. And we've been in this series called Playlist, and we're just looking at songs, a particular section of songs and their lyrics. And we talked about the fact that music is powerful, and lyrics to songs, they help us learn. They also lead us and guide us in life. And as the weeks and days and months have gone on now, I don't know about you, but my emotions have been kind of all over the place, up and down. And I thought about it, and I was like, man, if I just went back and kind of looked at my phone to the songs that I've been listening to throughout the day, or throughout the week, it'll probably reflect emotionally like where I am, up and down. And I started thinking about some songs that would be very great for right now. One of the songs that came to mind was REM, It's the End of the World as We Know It, But I feel fine, right? Or for any of you who are Nickelback fans, which probably no one's going to admit, if today was your last day, Or Tim McGraw fans, Live Like You're Dying. That one gets me every time, tearjerker, thinking about that. But how these songs, they can affect our attitudes. And in one moment, a song can get us hyped, or it can put us in the fetal position, And so I want us to look at some of this, because today, this song in particular, I think it speaks to where we are right now in this moment. And the lyrics of this song will give us hope as we move forward. It's one of the shortest psalms to read, but it takes a lifetime to learn it. Okay? So if you have a Bible, you can open it up to Psalms, which is just right in the middle of the Bible. Just open it up, then you'll probably go to the left or right a little bit and find Psalms. Or if you have an app, YouVersion, you can look there as well. We're going to look at Psalm 131 this week. And like I said, this series, Playlist, it's these songs in the middle of this book called Psalms, which means songs. And there's 15 of these songs here that God's people would sing as they traveled upward toward Jerusalem, the highest point in the city, 3 different times of the year, summer, fall, spring, for to worship God for these different festivals. And so they would sing these songs on their way. They would leave their life, their routines, their schedules, communities, all of that, and they would take this journey upward to Jerusalem 3 times a year, and they would sing these songs. It's right there, Psalm 120 through 134, 15 of them, and they would sing these. And these songs really remind us of who God is, where we came from, who we are, and where we're going. And so as they traveled, they knew, like, this was their God. Who was God? Who's he been? You know, who are we? We're his people. Where do we come from? We have a whole line behind us of ancestors who have followed God. And where are we going? We're going to worship him in Jerusalem. And for us to realize who we are, who he is, where we've come from, and where we're going. So we're going to look at this. King David wrote this, and we'll just start out Psalm 131, verse 1. My heart is not proud, Lord, my eyes are not haughty. David had some accomplishments already. He was going to be king, but he wasn't king yet. Saul was the king. David was just waiting, but it was a very difficult, tumultuous time for David in this period. He's waiting to be king. He had a great destiny in front of him, but he also realized the lure of pride. Pride. Anyone in here struggle with pride? Oh, man. Y'all are like, we had like 2 people the last who were like honest, you know. Nobody else wanted to say, yeah. I mean, not many of us would want to admit or confess, like, hey, I'm prideful. You know, we don't expose that problem. Yes, I do have a problem. I'm going to let you know about it. Like, we just don't do that. Many of us, we just aren't going to say that pride can be a problem for us. He said, my eyes are not haughty. This is the word, it's in the Hebrew, it's just pronounced room. Room. And it means to be elevated, to be above. And so basically what he's saying here is like, I don't view you from this position and look down on you. Because pride puts us in a place above other people, and there's no room for you up here, and I look down on you and them and they. Pride has everything to do with posture. It has everything to do with posture. A few years ago, now, I'm 45, so I feel like I'm old now. I'm halfway there, maybe. I don't know. But I'm like at that trek, and my body is starting to feel it. And so a few years ago, I had this problem. My back was killing me. I was having all these problems, and I actually had, like, you could visibly see my body, and I had one hip above the other one. And so I go to a chiropractor, they snap, crackle, pop, whatever, and then like 2 days later, I was back in the same place. And so there's a guy that I played football against in high school, and he lives in Keller, but I found out that he was this type of doctor called an urology, and they actually manipulate your tendons and ligaments and tissue and muscles to help move you back into alignment. And so I went to go see him. He started asking me questions, and like he said, well, tell me about da-da-da-da, and I said, well, you know, at night, I kind of, sometimes I sleep with my feet crossed. He's like, nah, can't do that. You can't do that. It'll mess you up. When you sit down, can't cross your feet. It'll mess you up, So he does all this stuff, and then he gives me these exercises to do. I went to see him twice. And you know what the key was? It wasn't having somebody come in and pop this and adjust this and move this. The key was he gave me these exercises, and I had to choose to get down on the floor every day for 5-10 minutes, get a band, stretch out my hamstrings, do these other exercises where I have these bands. Foam roller. Anybody know about a foam roller? It's pain. They're from hell, but they're awesome. And roll out on a foam roller. Yeah, a lacrosse ball. Anybody know about a lacrosse ball? They hurt, especially if you put that on your muscles to move you around. Anyway, I would do these exercises at first multiple times a day. Now I do them once or twice a day. I haven't gone back to the chiropractor in years. My body adjusts. My posture has changed because I've chosen to get down on the ground, to humble myself, and be in a lower position. But how many of us are willing to do that in life? That we're willing to just say, you know what? I'm going to choose to be in this place because it's going to put me in a better position. My posture will be different. Choosing to humble myself. This posture alignment in these lyrics, it has to do with our thoughts and our hearts. David, he's in line to be king. He's going to have armies and servants and citizens who look to him, who he's over, but yet he knows what will happen if pride creeps in. Our heart, this pride, it's revealed through our perspective. Our perspective of ourselves and of other people. I could say so much about this right now, but like just bear with me. Right now, with everything that we've gone through, I can just mention a few things, and you'll probably start thinking about people, and people who don't think like you think or like I think. Like, we'll talk about COVID and response to COVID and how we do that, and government and health and, shutdowns and rules and recession. And then we can talk about racial injustice. We can talk about, police brutality. We can talk about all these things. Despite your race, your nationality, your background, the culture that you were brought up in, what is your perception of others? And the people who don't think like you, don't believe what you believe or what I believe, what's my perception? Do I look down? You're an idiot. You don't think what I think. You're a moron. How could you believe that? What's your perception? Are you above them? There's no room up here. Maybe people think differently, even wrong, but then does that mean that they have less worth and less value than you or me? Who do you look down on? Who do we look down on? Because what happens when my perspective and my posture is filled with pride, we degrade and devalue other people. People who are made in the image of God. And the opposite of pride is humility. And I know this, that God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. God opposes people who believe and think that they are better than or above others. David wrote these lyrics as a reminder to himself and all of us to position ourselves to choose to come before God daily, and not just daily, but throughout the day, to humble ourselves. A posture of humility, it positions us for God's grace in our life. It aligns our hearts and our thoughts. So we start with this posture of humility, and then David writes this. He says, I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. This line here, it comes at us at so many angles, okay, today. What are you concerned about? Today, right now, in this moment, think about what are you concerned about? This word concern in the Hebrew, it means mode of life, or a path, a particular path of one's life. This concern. And David's saying, I don't walk or move amongst all of these great things going on. Like he's saying that if we don't put our concerns into perspective, then our posture and our pace and our path in life, it will fluctuate based on the circumstances. And then what happens, these concerns, they coerce us into following down this path of fear and anxiety. I'm just going to ramble off some of these when it comes to concerns. Is COVID going to end? When will it end? What if we keep having wave after wave? Will we wear masks forever? What's school going to be like? How's that going to work? Oh, wait, then let's talk about the economy. Will the economy ever recover? What if I lose my job? What if everything crashes? Is this all just a conspiracy? Are we just being played like a puppet? You know, I read mask and then no mask, and then you're supposed to wear a mask, and then you social distance, be 6 feet apart, but yet you can protest here or go to this rally here. Think about all of that, and then you throw into that like race, like will injustice ever end? Will the preference and the privilege stop? What other monuments will come down? What's been left out of my history books? What needs to be put in history books? What's now wanting to be erased from history? Is the ship sinking? Is the United States of America still united? The Roman Empire lasted 500 years. We're not even close to that, but it ended. I don't know if that increased your anxiety or your concern, but maybe I just gave you some new ones this morning. Sorry, not sorry. But not only are we concerned and worried about these unknowns, but we also have these great matters that these lyrics are referring to also. These personal dreams and these fantasies and thoughts of what I would say is what could be for me. These aspirations. You know, we want more. We want to be someone. We want to be successful. And then, to be honest, we get on social media and we see other people and what's going on with them, and then we just get depressed because we just see their highlight reel of life. And in some ways, we say we want their life. So I ask this question for us to all think about. Are we seeking the dreams and desires that God has placed in our heart? Or are we settling and setting our sights on the successes of other people and wanting that for ourselves when that's not what God has for us? Earlier I mentioned that we all have weaknesses, we have vulnerabilities, and we have limits. And this is something we don't like to talk about because from a young age, I wasn't told this, but it wasn't long after. It's like, you're a snowflake, you can do anything. Like, there are things in life that I know I can't do. You know? We have limits. We don't like to be told no. And I don't know how many of us regularly tell ourselves no. Some of us have wishes for ourselves and our lives that our lives cannot support in this current moment. And it's called limits. David didn't set his focus on the promotion ahead. He wasn't looking to the future or being in a position above others, but he was in this place where he knew and trusted that God had this appointed season in the present for him. And both his feet were planted in the moment. Here's how he did it. Verse 2, but I have calmed and quieted myself. Some translations say I've calmed myself and quieted my ambitions. So remembering that a posture of humility, it positions us for God's grace in our life. And then we prioritize the pause. We prioritize the pause. He understood, he prioritized and mastered this practice of pausing. He learned that going through life and his thoughts, his fears, his emotions, his ambitions needed to just stop so that his soul could be quieted and calmed. These words, calmed and quieted, calm means to agree with, to be like. Quieted, to be silent. So he agreed to be silent and still. That was only 10 seconds. I read somewhere that the average American can only handle 15 seconds of silence before they start fidgeting for their phone or looking for some kind of distraction. The awkwardness, the uncomfortable of silence. And you would think in a pandemic that shuts everything down that we would actually embrace that. Being silent and alone, for some, it's the scariest place to be. Because you're alone with your Creator. And nothing and no one else. This pause is so important. Instead of walking in worry and the thoughts of what could be for me, by God's grace, David determined that there could be satisfaction and serenity of just being with God. Look at how he describes this. He says, I'm like a weaned child with its mother, like a weaned child, I'm content. A newborn depends on its mother for life and for nourishment. A baby screams for food and for someone to take care of him. That child is the center of the universe, and everything exists for him. When or if the child ever grows up, this will be determined by the child recognizing and learning that he is not the center of the universe. This phrase, weaned like a weaned child, it's repeated for emphasis. Because this process of weaning, it may seem awful to the child, but it's necessary for development. And the weaned child comes to realize that the denial of one of the mother's gifts doesn't deny the mother's presence. I'm going to say that again. A weaned child will begin to understand that the denial of one of the mother's gifts isn't the denial of the mother's presence. He comes to love the mother herself instead of just getting the gift. A weaned child is with its mother and learns to be content just being with, out of a desire to be with, of closeness, a relationship. many of us don't have that desire with God because we want what we want when we want it. I'm not going to go too far down this tangent, but there are people who still are breastfeeding their children, 7, 8, 9 years old. Awkward for all of us. So awkward. At some point, we have to grow up. We no longer want something with God, something from God. But we personally know that his presence changes everything. It says, I'm like a weaned child with its mother, like a weaned child, I am content. Contentment with God, it doesn't come naturally. It's like this child being weaned. Like we learn, we mature, we pause, and we prioritize a life that desires God's presence. We become weaned from self-sufficiency, self-will, and self-seeking, from all that's in this world that has taken a priority over God and that we've started to depend on instead of him. And when God allows circumstances into our lives that wean us from the things that we've relied on, we humble ourselves and we agree to stop and pause and learn and know contentment of being with him. What are you concerned about? How's your posture? Is pausing even a part of life for you? And then who or what are you clinging to for contentment? Because we all do it. I thought about this in this whole song and looking at it and talking about pride and, like how I look at other people and humbling myself daily and thinking about, all of this stuff that's going on, these great things that I don't have answers for and that I don't really know where to find the answers and what's true and what's not true and all of that, and like stopping and pausing and knowing that God's near and being content in that. And so as I've thought about this is for me personally. And so all I could do is say, maybe this will be helpful for you. My commitment this week to walk in has everything to do with 5 minutes. 5 minutes of time. There's so much information. There's so much change. There's so much going on. And I don't know about you, but I don't know who to believe or what to believe. Anybody else, or is it just me? Okay. Thank goodness. I thought I was having a Brittany moment. So instead of whatever it is for you, Fox News, instead of CNN, instead of the Facebook feed, why don't we limit that? Why don't we limit what we're hearing and all the noise and just say, okay, 5 minutes in the morning, I'm gonna see what's going on. Okay? But at 5 minutes, I'm cutting it off. And then I'm just gonna take 5 minutes and I'm gonna sit in silence. I'm gonna put a timer on my phone. I'm just gonna sit. And then at night, I'm gonna do the same thing, because at night, a lot can happen in a day. So I'll listen over here, but only for 5 minutes. And then I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna listen to the one who's over all of this. And that's what I know I need to do, is to listen to him more and not the opinions of others, not the facts that I have to try to figure out in a feed. And I want to replace this stream, which almost seems like voices screaming at me, with just silence. David encourages these people on this journey in this song, and he's encouraging us too, to really think about and know where our hope lies. That Jesus is everything. It says this, it says, Israel, put your hope in the Lord both now and forevermore. Hope for today and forever. And my hope is that for all of us, that in humility, I know for me that in humility I would say, I don't have all of the answers, but I know the one who does, and he's enough. People are going to have opinions. More information will come out. There'll be so much more that we have to process, that we have to filter. And we need something, someone to hold on to. So may we, in humility, say, we don't know all the answers, but we know the one who does, and he's enough. Would you bow your heads? I felt this earlier this morning in here with a group of people, and the same today. And maybe for some of you who are at home right now, watching, listening, that same emotion, that feeling of confusion, that just sense of instability, of not knowing what today or tomorrow is going to bring. And for some of you this morning who do know Jesus, that you be encouraged and reminded to stay humble, to choose that posture as we walk forward, to choose that in your life, the people you work with, the people that you're around every day, and to also to pull away, to listen to that voice. And today I pray that we would listen to your voice and not all the others. That the great matters that we don't know, the answers that we don't have, that we may never have, that we trust you because you do know. That you are the author of life, the beginning and the end, and you know, and we can trust you. Help us to keep our eyes on you. For some today here, or just listening, watching, maybe in the midst of all of this, like God is just speaking, and you can't push him away. And there's just this feeling, this uncomfortable feeling of knowing that, gosh, there's just something that I miss, that contentment, that peace, that stillness, that quiet. Where do I get that? You don't get that from going to church. You don't get that from rules. You don't get that from religion. You get that from a relationship. And it only comes from the one who is perfect. This Jesus that we talk about, this Jesus who is God, who was there from the beginning, who came here because of love, who came and lived a perfect life. God in the flesh, Emmanuel with us, came and lived this life. He gave his life all because of love. Gave his life for us because we're all messed up. We all have made mistakes. We've all done our own thing. We all have regrets. And we all feel the guilt of decisions and choices that we've made in life and that we know aren't right. And Jesus, gave his life for us. And he paid a price that we can't pay. And he gave his life. And he died a brutal death. But he rose from the dead to prove that he is alive, that he is God, that there's no one else like him. And he came for us because of love. And it is not going to church, not rules, not religion, none of that. It is an actual conversation and placing faith and trust in Jesus and saying, I need a Savior. And I really do believe that you are who you say you are. And I know I can't save myself. And I believe that you are God, that you are Lord, that you died for me. And I give you my life. I trust you with my life. And that is it, that anyone who calls on the name of Jesus is saved. And so today, if that's you today, that you would just have that conversation with him, that you would talk to someone close to you about that. And God, may we live our lives that are so transparent, so real, that people would know that you are God, that you are good, and that we can trust you with our lives. And I pray this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. Would y'all stand? I'm going to be down here at the front. And if you just need someone to pray with, I'll be down here. Rachel will be down here. And we'd love for you to not miss this moment here today.